morning. Hi, I'm Sonia Malhotra, and today I'm going to talk about a pilgrimage our youth group and our youth leaders took to Taizé in France. So the main mission of Taizé is to discover or rediscover a meaning to your life and to find a new vitality. Being in Taizé also helps us to prepare for taking our responsibilities at home and becoming bearers of peace and trust. And Taizé is led by a community of brothers who have made a lifelong commitment to follow Christ. So when we were first greeted at Taizé, we were greeted by one of their volunteers, and she gave us a schedule basically just like this. And there was also even an option to spend the entire week in silence to individually find God in your life. But for the rest of us, we usually started out with the 8:15 morning prayer, as you see listed. And basically, when we entered the church, people surrounded the church holding signs with the word silence written on it, so it could create a very peaceful atmosphere. And then we would also sing some songs in a variety of languages, like we did just now, in Latin and sometimes in French. And then later, we would also have breakfast, which was usually just a piece of bread, some chocolate, and then some hot chocolate. It was minimal, but it was pretty tasty. We all liked it. Then after, we would go to a Bible reflection. People of a similar age, like 15 to 16 or 17 to 24-ish, would gather for a sort of forum or reflection led by a brother who gave a philosophical but also humorous insight into a specific reading of the Bible. And then we would split it up into small groups to discuss not only parts of the Bible that we found interesting, but also talk about our own lives, because we were all from different places all around the world, and get to know each other. In my group, I had kids from Sweden, Israel, Ukraine, and Spain. And despite English not being the first language of most of the people at Taizé, many of us made friends with people from all around the world. And then in the latter half of the day, basically repeated, we had midday prayer, which is similar to morning prayer, and then lunch, and we had another Bible reflection. And then at the end of the day, after evening prayer, we would have something called Oyak. And Oyak is a sort of hangout place at Taizé, more relaxed, where you could make new friends from different places in the world. There's also frozen yogurt, and had a lot of fun. And around the Oyak, there were people singing and also playing guitar in a bunch of different languages and dancing. And yeah, that's basically it.
Hi everyone, good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Sonia, for that intro. So, my name is Robbie Bidding. I was one of the youth mentors here, and along with Colleen Haddad, was one of the chairs for organizing this trip to Taizé. And so what I have, I'm going to be a bit of a sort of moderator of this wonderful panel of pilgrims here. I have a few questions, and I'm saying this to you all and also to them, so they know kind of the deal here. I'm going to ask a few questions, and then one or two of you all will come up and answer them to tell you a little bit more about the experience there. So to dive right in, there was about 4,000 or 5,000 other people with us there in Taizé. People coming in from all over the world, for the most part all young people, so from the ages roughly of 15 to 30. So my question is, can one of you or two of you tell me about some of the people that you met, how you met them, and sort of what the other pilgrims at Taizé were like?
So some of the people that I met, for example, when me and Luke were throwing around a Frisbee, some people from Germany came up and were like, hey, can we join? And so there were we met some nice German people who like to play Frisbee. And we later organized an entire Ultimate Frisbee game with some Italians and some other people there. Yeah.
Anyone else?
We also had the opportunity to make good friends through our Bible study groups. I know in my group personally, I had Hungarians, Romanians, and Portuguese people. The Romanians like ditched after the second day. They didn't come back. Me and Miguel met a couple of Portuguese people who we later went to an ice cream factory which is nearby with, and that was really fun.
Okay, so the small groups, which Sonia touched on and Gabriel just mentioned as well, were a really big part of the sort of cultural bonding and times for reflecting. So kind of following up on that, can someone maybe please tell us, like, what did you guys talk about? What were the Bible reflections like?
So I'll begin with saying that self-moderated teen Bible study sounds like an accident waiting to happen. Surprisingly, this was not the case. And so the Bible studies would have, like, two different parts. The first bit would be sort of everyone convening in this big room. And then a brother would sort of start by introducing the passage, giving some important announcements. Like the poisonous caterpillars that you had to stay away from. And then he'd sort of provide a little, a few thoughts, and then he'd split up into groups. And so, honestly, it was really interesting because this first part where you'd get to have this brother sort of like give his honest thoughts about, often a confusing text was really phenomenal. I was struck by how the fact that he was able to speak so frankly, but to have sort of such interesting takes, I don't know, it was very fascinating to see how someone who had spent their entire life living in this community and focusing on this, just sort of how that had changed his way of seeing things. And this has become a very canned phrase, but he would very honestly say multiple times, God is love. And that was kind of impactful. And so then he would have us split into groups. There were, roughly 8 people in a group, I think. And the groups would sort of, I think part of this was a Bible discussion, right? And despite language barriers, people were able to talk about fairly complex ideas. And the second element, which truthfully happened more than I would like to admit, was just like general get-to-know-you activities. And that was really interesting too because we were the only Americans there that we ever saw, save for one other guy. So, I don't know, it was very interesting to just get to talk with folks that were in another continent and just how their lives were different. So, definitely it was a pretty crucial part of the experience. And it was, I think I got a lot out of it, and I think other folks did as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so another question, a hot topic with the youth and also the parents before we were leaving for this trip was, what would the role of technology be on this pilgrimage to France? Would they bring their phones? Would it be like? We made a decision to be, I would say, totally unplugged. So I was wondering, could someone please share what was that experience like being sort of tech-free for the week?
Alright, so my name is Seth, and it was really nice to be off my phone for once in my life. Of course, we had our phones in Paris, but once we got to Taizé, we had them locked up. I found myself more engaged in such activities as reading or napping or just walking about, and I actually got through an entire book of summer reading. So that was nice, and when I got back home, I found I was spending less time on my phone, which is, I guess, a good thing to the parents.
Hi. My name is Miguel. And while I was in Taizé, I went into Taizé planning on not using my phone regardless of the rules because I sort of wanted to really delve into this experience. And I think that was a really good choice because when you're in this environment with so many people from all these different cultures, like you really want to take like, you want to take advantage of the opportunity to meet all these new people. And so when you're off your phone, you get you're more free to talk with new people and to communicate. And it's sort of like that idea of like, why don't people talk on the bus? Because they're on their phones, right? But when you're off your phones and there's all these people that you've never met and everyone wants to meet you and meet new people, it's super easy to just meet new people that you never thought you would ever talk to before, because they're from all the way across the world. And so it was just really, really great because of that.
So Sonia mentioned that we had prayer 3 times a day. So morning, midday, evening prayer. And the prayers would always sort of follow that same simple format of song and silence, some prayer. And there's 1 or 2 sort of special evening prayers as well. We had a very nice prayer around the cross, and we had another celebration of light with some candles and celebrating the resurrection. So I'm wondering if we could hear maybe a quick sort of anecdote, story, idea, thought about the prayers. So tell us, what were the prayers like? Any sort of highlights or standout moments?
Hi, my name is Luke. So for me, the prayers were a time for me to kind of bring it together after being out and about basically all day doing my own thing, trying to meet new people from around the world. Really actually being off my phone kind of forced me to be more outside and more engaged with my community compared to when I'm at home, kind of just in my room all day, not wanting to go outside. So for me, I guess prayers were a time for me to reflect on what I'd done so far that day and what I wanted to do for the rest of the day. And there was a very, very, very powerful service on Friday where I believe it was a very long service as well. It lasted quite a while. But towards the end, the brothers got to lay down the cross, and people were allowed to go up to the cross and rest their head on the cross and really, really reflect. And that one moment was really powerful to me because it made me think about all the things that I'd done in the past and all the people I'd lost and all the people I don't want to lose. And I guess it was really a peaceful time as well. I remember dozing off a few times during the silences. But it was really important for me because it was time for me to, again, bring it together and reflect and really enjoy what was going on around me.
So a lot of you are probably thinking that 3 services every day, 3 40-minute long services is probably a lot. It's probably really big commitment. But in reality, the only 2 things that, as Robbie mentioned, the service contained were just singing and silence. So you could really just make it whatever you wanted to make it. You could think about really whatever you wanted, just everyone sitting around you peacefully. And I think one of the most impactful things about Taizé too, one of the most crucial moments for I think a lot of these people too, was the silences where you really got to kind of reflect on yourself and kind of think about how you had grown and what the experiences you had gone through, the people you had met at Taizé. In the silences, oftentimes your mind would wander. You would think about weird stuff. I don't know. But in those moments where you really got to focus, it really was. It was really it got to be really, really deep and very very, very personal, and so you could really just make new discoveries about yourself during that time.
So we would, as a group, we would get together periodically throughout the week to sort of check in on the experience. I think it was a really nice way to allow everyone to go out and make these new friends and meet these new people, but then also, we travel as a group together and be able to come back and reflect sort of midweek. And we had one of these reflections, and it was to follow on what Gabriel was just saying about, wow, there's prayer 3 times a day, there's Bible reflection daily. it sounds like a lot of church in a week, but that wasn't quite the vibe everyone was getting, right? Everyone more was saying that, it doesn't feel so church heavy, it doesn't feel so church forward, and so I'm hoping someone wants to come up and maybe kind of dive back into that discussion of we had this cultural experience, we had this church experience, and getting a little bit of both.
So while we were in Taizé, that question was posed to us. And the way that I really thought about it was that our day is sort of like a building, right? It's like a house. And each time that we would have church, it was 3 times a day and they were evenly spaced out. And it was sort of like structural beams in our day. And the rest of the day was fluid, and it could, it wasn't always the same. And it was, meeting new people and all this excitement and like new things. But this prayer was a constant that everyone could sort of like come back to themselves and sort of like reflect. And so it was like a really nice structure that helped to make days at Taizé really productive and really, insightful, really, really good for us. So.
So I think this is going to be my last question for the group, and I know all of us we have a few more things that we'll do with our time this morning, and I know most of us will hang around afterwards so we can answer additional questions from you all. But my last question, and maybe we can get a few of you up here, as Sonia mentioned, as soon as we arrived at Taizé, we're greeted by these volunteers and by the brothers that are asking us to think about the experience, but also immediately think about home. What will we take with us from this tiny village in France back to Boston? So my last question for all of us is what's something that you see yourself continuing here from that experience in France?
Emily too. I'm Emily. Should I go? Okay. Okay, something I took home from Taizé. Well, when I was in Taizé, I didn't have my phone, but like everyone else. But while I was in Taizé, something really painful happened at my home, and oh my gosh, like coming back from so much light into so much darkness was just like kind of drastic. So like something that I took from Taizé was like the light. Like how cheesy does that sound? But like, I don't know, it's like, I don't know where I'm going, but like.
Say what happened.
Oh, my grandpa passed. Yeah, so like, woo, a lot, yeah, cool. I don't know. I've always kind of been afraid of silence because when I'm in silence, my brain goes to like the weirdest places and it gets really dark and then it's just no turning back. And I think Taizé sort of taught me the value of silence in a lot of ways. He taught me like how to just like stop for a second. It's like I'm going all the time. And, like it's really nice to just be able to like stop. So I guess a thing that I took back from Taizé was like the value of silence.
I would say that another thing that was very tangible at Taizé was the community. There was just everyone was welcoming and everyone was ready to be welcomed. And I feel like how everyone could just belong even though they were visitors for a week, that just everyone was there and everyone was welcomed was a very powerful thing that I took away. The power of welcoming people. Okay.
Wait, I have another thing to say. I made so many friends, and I'm in contact with all of them, and they're amazing and beautiful, and I love them.
One of the things that the Taizé brothers said that stuck with me was, God takes you as you are, but once he's inside your heart, a change is needed. And this is a French-speaking brother, so the English was like a little blunt at the end, but it got me thinking. You know, I think before Taizé, I had thought that I'd been doing a pretty great job living the gospel. But like, no, which sounds funny, because what I got from this is that if you think that you're doing a good job, you're probably not. You know? Because a change is needed. And so living the gospel doesn't look like living the gospel when you're at church and feeling really great about yourself, nor does it look like, you know, taking Sunday as a day of rest. It means every day you think about how you're spreading God's love in the world. And, you know, Taizé had a lot of church, but it felt very natural. And it's because it was a seamless integration into everyday life. And that's what I got from this. It was pretty powerful. And I hope that every young person can have something like that, because it made a big impact.
So we thought we would end with like a miniature Taizé experience of song and silence. So you'll have, so Sonia, if you'll go back to the piano, we're going to sing Nada Te Turbe, and you'll have some moments of silence, and Gabriel will say a prayer, and then we'll sing Laudate, and then it's officially over, but please stick around if you have questions and don't need to get to the 11:15 service.
Jésus notre joie, par ta continuelle présence en nous, tu nous conduis à donner notre vie. Même si nous t'oublions, ton amour demeure et tu répands sur nous l'Esprit Saint. Jesus, our joy, by your continual presence within us, you lead us to give our life. Even if we forget you, your love remains, and you send your Holy Spirit upon us.
Thank you everyone for coming today and sharing this experience with us, and also thank you all who gave generously to help us go on this trip in the first place. So thank you.